Due to the lockdown, I am no longer working and I have no income for this period of time. I love my work and I'm also enjoying this pause. I do a lot of cool and interesting stuff. I would also love to thrive financially during this pause time and after it, even though right now I don't feel any inspiration to adapt my work to the situation. Seems like I want it all. How can I thrive financially and also do exactly what I want and love my work? Right now, it seems like I can't have them both. Well, there's your answer. I want this thing I cannot have. So you can't have it right now. I want this thing I cannot have. The law of attraction is confounding, isn't it? I want this, but I can't have it. So you've got to find a way to line up with what you want. And the easiest way that we have seen anyone do that is to think about what you want and why you want it. I want it because I want to thrive. Those words were there. I like the feeling of thriving. I like the feeling of no-endedness. I like the feeling of open-endedness. I like the feeling of ideas flowing. I like the feeling of all things flowing. I want it because I like beautiful things, and I like thinking about beautiful things, and I like beautiful things manifesting in my experience. And there are so many beautiful things that represent abundance that do flow into my experience that don't require dollars or don't require money. I am abundant in all of these things, and I like the feeling of that. In other words, you have to find a workaround. You have to find a way to have it now. You have to find a way to feel it now. You can't get to more abundance when you feel that there isn't enough. You can't get to wellness when you feel frightened about sickness. In other words, law of attraction is so consistent that after a while, once you get the hang of it relative to one subject, you can apply it to all subjects. The last few weeks I've been feeling ill. I thought I may have contracted the virus, but my test came back negative. Turns out I have bronchitis. I selfishly wanted to have the virus so I could get it over with. On the other hand, I'm relieved that I did not expose anyone else. I've been struggling between those two thoughts, and I feel guilty to have wanted to have it. I understand that this thought may be showing up as my fear. How can I get past this? Isn't this interesting? I want to get this inevitable thing over with. And we want to say, why is it inevitable for you? Why is it inevitable that you have to get it and get it over with? It doesn't have to be inevitable. It is not inevitable. It is not inevitable that you get the virus. But you say, if I get it and then they test me, they give me a manifestation that says, yes, you had it, then you don't have to do any thinking about that. You don't have to line up your energy anymore because you have a manifestation that you can rely on or lean on, you see. And we say that's more of that conditional living that doesn't serve you, because there is always going to be something new that somebody's trying to convince you is a threat to you. And if you need to have proof that those threats don't exist before you can feel better, you're not ever going to feel good, because there's always going to be something out there in this contrasting world in which you live that you could feel fearful about. You just really want to get to the place where you can make a choice. But you have to practice it. You have to practice those thought muscles, so to speak. A lot of you heard that. I'm a real estate agent. I've followed your guidance of focus over the past year, and I listen to impulses. I've stopped cold calling and open houses because I didn't enjoy them. And now, with this virus and no business on the horizon, what do you suggest I do? Well, that's a big statement there. No business on the horizon. What you're saying is, what we heard you say, no vortex, no vibrational reality, nothing calling me. That, of course, is not what you meant. What you meant is, I so far haven't received the next impulse. No wonder you're focused upon the sort of shutting down of things. And so you're not finding inspiration, but you could, because your inner being knows what's in your vortex. Your inner being knows what's on the horizon. Your inner being knows what's on the horizon. But when you are talking about what you want and where it's going to be and when it's going to be and how you're going to find it and who's going to show it to you, and you ask those questions that you don't have answers to, then you can't find the horizon. But when you ask what you want and why you want it, then you tap into what's on the horizon. I want to feel the flow. I want to feel exhilaration. I want to feel happy in my work. I want to feel inspired. I want to interact with others who are also happy. There's so much that you want that is on the horizon. Perhaps we should call the vortex the horizon. Oh, but it's so much more. It's not just the horizon. It's the gestation of the culmination of the cooperative components of everything that you've ever wanted, right down to the last detail that you just put in it with the last thing that you were worried about. In other words, can you tell me what my specific inner being thinks about me and my gap? Nothing at all. Your inner being never focuses upon your gap. Your inner being always focuses upon your horizon, always focuses upon what's in your vortex, always focuses upon your desires. And that's why you are sometimes able to close the expanse, but your inner being is not noticing the gap, ever. Your inner being knows you can close the gap, for sure. Can you feel the distinction? Good question. How do I not take score? Well, this question is in response to something that we say all the time. Don't take score. You're taking score too soon. It's like you find the feeling place and you receive some imagery and it feels really good to you. But then there is such a human tendency to look and see if it worked. In other words, what's the result of this effort that I offered? And so what happens is, as you find a good feeling and then you look to see if it worked, and then you find a good feeling and you look to see that it worked, every time you look to see if it worked, you're looking for evidence of it working. And in looking for evidence of it working, that means that there's a question within you that requires the evidence. This all ties into that conditional living that so many humans are practiced at. So you could overcome this a little bit by, instead of taking score of what an earlier question was calling the concrete evidence, rather than trying to take score of the concrete evidence, take score or try to feel for the vibrational evidence. Because that's evidence. The way you feel is a manifestation too. The improvement in the way you feel, that's a manifestation too. Your alignment with your inner being, that's a manifestation. Being tuned in, tapped in, turned on, that's a manifestation. So take score of how it feels for a while. And then more and more. Sometimes you'll be in a moment on a subject that isn't so big to you. In other words, earlier someone asked the question, why do things that feel small come easy and the things that feel small take so much longer or don't come at all? And the answer is, it's in your perspective of it. And so the things that you really, 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 really care about are the things that you're taking score of more and more. But there are all kinds of evidences in your emotions and in your awareness of the increased momentum, that if you would focus upon them, you will find yourself standing in a moment. Esther had a moment like that this morning when she is asking out loud to herself, what should I wear? And an impulse so strong gave her an immediate answer. And she knew she was tuned in. She knew broader perspective was playing with her. You have all kinds of those moments that are not necessarily related to your great big issues. They're related to smaller things like, what should I wear today? When two people are in a car together and the driver is out of alignment, but the passenger is in full alignment, who controls the point of attraction? some might think this is a tricky question. We think it's a very interesting question. It's all about how much attention you're giving to the one who's now not in alignment that determines whether you're in alignment or not. And so often you say, I'm in alignment, but you're not. And the other says, well, I'm in alignment and you're not. Or the other one says, or you say, what I want is the right thing to want. And the other one says, no, what I want is the right thing to want. And so both of you are pushing against each other. So neither one of you are connected to your vortex, and neither one of you are inspired, and neither one of you feel good. And then you're both blaming each other for how you feel and for how things are turning out. So really, if you're in a car with someone who's in a bad mood, and you're aware that they're in a bad mood, you didn't get out ahead of it before you got into the car. Now we know that feels really heavy duty. And Esther has said to us, so many of you have shouted it at us. Abraham, why am I the only one that has to do the work? Why do I have to do all the work? Why is this driver who is in a bad mood never have to do any work? Why are you putting it all on me? Because you asked the question. And so only you can hear the answer. You can be unconditionally happy. You can live unconditional love. You want to live unconditional love. Your inner being lives unconditional love. Wait, does that mean that my inner being never sees anything that's in the contrast that is unwanted? That isn't what we said. We said your inner being lives unconditional love because your inner being never pushes against anything. That's why your inner being doesn't have resistance. So if you're not pushing against it, if you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, if you were pre-paving, if you were getting out ahead of it, if you were segment intending, if you had meditated, if you had gotten out ahead of it, and when you got into the car, that's the vibrational frequency that you were in, and you were all tuned in with your inner being, and therefore more powerful than a million who are not. And under those conditions, you are with someone who is in a bad mood. You could be, as your inner being is, aware of his bad mood, and be in step 5 rather than in step 1. Which means you could be aware of it, and you could appreciate the contrast that the other one is living, and the good news that's going into the vortex. You could appreciate that something good is coming from this. You could appreciate your awareness that you can stay tuned in anyway. You can let this lovely co-creative partner of yours help you to move about a world that is not standing on its head to please you, and you still find ways to be pleased. You didn't say, not one of you, I'll come into this body, I'll go, but get it all cleaned up before I get there. And your inner being doesn't say, I'll get in the car with this one, but make sure this one's in a good mood before I get in. Your inner being just got in the car with you.